Hey to all you Matthew studying peeps out there. We're getting close to being done with Matthew. Today the lesson is Gethsemane. Matthew 26:31 through 56. A good lesson. These scriptures are like holy ground to me. Jesus went to the cross bearing our sin, and it starts this section with they will fall away, and told them why: because of me, because of Jesus. Their association with Jesus would overtake them with fear, and we can see this quoted. Verse 31 is quoted in Zechariah 13:3 through 9. Satan uses fear often to sow discord, to scatter the flock. So when you say, I don't have to go to church to be a Christian, and you don't, but you need to be with the flock, period. That's my opinion. So important to go to church. There's safety in being connected. Now, verses 32 through 35, Jesus foretells of the return, does not talk about their failure, as it is the end. Here's huge forgiveness of Jesus. He says, y'all are going to leave me and forsake me, but you're going to come back. I'm going to meet you in Galilee. So the talk of failing is too much for Peter, and he says, not me, I'm not going to leave you. And yet Jesus says, you're going to be the first one to abandon me. You're going to deny me 3 times. So in verses 36 through 56, we see the arrest and the trial of Jesus. And of course, the olive orchard at this time, Gethsemane means olive press. Oil was used for several things, such as lighting of lamps. But Jesus speaks of an unspeakable pressure in a place of the olive press. So you can understand he is facing an unbelievable task ahead of him. In verse 38, the Greek word for sorrowful is difficult to put into English language because it's a sorrow that is unto death. One of the other Gospels, an angel is sent to comfort Jesus, to carry on. Luke tells that here in Gethsemane, I have trouble saying that. It tells of sweat as blood, and Jesus prayed the same prayer more than once. So that means we can too. We can repeat our prayers. God hears them, and of course he hears them, all of them, even the first one, but we can repeat our prayers. So what a prayer he prayed in the middle of the night. Jesus wanted his disciples to pray and share. And go to 2 Corinthians 5:21 is an insight as to why it was so horrible, because he became sin who knew no sin. And one thing I wanted to kind of point out that's not in my written lesson, that when he has some disciples stop and pray, and then he has 3 more follow him, Peter, James, and John, and then he goes alone. That's kind of a type of the tabernacle. You have the outer, and then the inner, and then the Holy of Holies, if you get what I mean. I'm not saying these men were more holy than the others, but to me that kind of symbolizes that. And I could be wrong, but I've heard other commentators mention that. But he bore our sin. So how do you understand that he became sin? Verse 39, he fell on his face, a cup. He asked if it's possible, let this cup pass from him. So this cup is mentioned several times in the Bible, just for a few. Isaiah 51:22, Jeremiah 25:15 and 16, the cup of wrath. And Revelation 14:10, cup of God's wrath. The cup for Jesus was the cup of God's wrath for all of us. He drank it all. 1 John 2:2 says he is the atoning sacrifice for the whole world. God was silent as there was no other way. He turned his back. He forsook Jesus because he couldn't look upon sin. In verses 40 through 56, underline, the flesh is weak. That is us, is it not? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Underline that in your Bible. Judas comes with soldiers, signal. He says, I'm going to give you a signal. I'm going to kiss him. Greeting, teacher. It's just so sad and so awful. Verse 51, sword, Peter cuts off an ear, and Jesus heals it and tells him to put the sword away. Verse 53, angels would have come if he called out to God. But this is going to according to God's plan. The last conviction, or one last appeal, Jesus gives them. He says, every day I could have been taken. He's not trying to get out of what was to happen. He's just, giving them one last chance to turn from what they're going to do. Boy, this is holy scriptures. It's holy ground. I hope y'all have a good week. I'll see you next week.